Hey everyone, my name is Gavin, and this will just be a quick tutorial on how to make an elevator with a little bit of Python in the BGE, and I'm just going to get started. So to start off, what we're going to do is double click the A button to select everything and hit X and delete, and let's do spacebar and then add a plane. This plane right here is going to act as our elevator. It's just going to be a platform. So I'm going to rename it as elevator like this, and I'm actually going to give it a color like let's say the color is blue. Alright, now that we have this, what we're going to do is go into our animation mode right here. I'll just select Blender Game like this as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to define how long we want our elevator to run. So the start keyframe will be 0, and I'll put the end keyframe as 50. And on keyframe 0, what's going to happen? So select this as 0 right here. I'm going to do I and then lock location. And let's set this to frame 50, and I'll move this up a fair amount. And I'll do I and then lock location. Now if we play this though, so I'm going to go back to frame 0, you'll notice that it doesn't play very even. If you want it to play evenly, let's do key, interpolation mode, and linear. And we should see if we hit play, it'll play evenly like this. Okay, now that we have this, what I'm going to do is go into Game Logic View. I'll have Blender Game still selected. And let's add our player by doing spacebar and then add a cube like this. This cube is going to represent our player, so I'm going to rename it as player. Alright. Now that we have this, let's give this player character physics. Character like that. I'll add a new material. I'll hit new. And let's say the player is going to be green. Alright. And we want the player just to be able to move forward. So I'm going to add a keyboard sensor. And I'll call this forward like this, with W as the key. And we want him so if he moves forward, so let's do 0.3 on the y-axis on a motion actuator. Alright. So what we're just going to have happen is we're going to have it so our player's going to move forward, and once he hits with this, it's going to move him up, and then he can keep going. So what I'm going to do now is do spacebar and then add a plane again. I'll hit S, Y, and then 5 to scale it out 5 times on the y-axis. And I'll hit Shift and D on this plane, and I'll drag it out here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this plane to be at the top of where the elevator is at frame 50. So I'm going to go back into our animation view, select frame 50 like this, and what we're going to do is right click on your elevator, do Object, Snap, and then Cursor to Selected. Right click on this plane over here, and do Object, Snap, Selection to Cursor, and then drag it off like this, so it's going to evenly match the heights of our elevator. Okay, now that we have this, what I'm going to do is we can see if we hit play, we can move our cube forward like this. But I'm going to right click on this plane, and what I'm going to do is if there's a collision with the property player, so if the elevator collides with player, so if the player's standing on it, so collision with the property player, and we're going to have another property sensor like this, and if we're going to have player on, or player elevator up, how about let's say that. Alright, and we're going to have a property called elevator up, so change this to a Boolean property, and I'll call it elevator up, and if elevator up is equal to false. So if the player hasn't rode the elevator yet, so if the value of that is false, we're going to have an AND controller. We're going to connect these two to that. And then once we have that, let's add an action actuator. We're going to have it play from 0 to 50 of our elevator action. So it's going to do that. And then what it's going to do is it's going to set that property, the elevator up, to true. So once we've ridden the elevator, it's going to set that property to true. Alright? So, I'm going to select the elevator back to go to frame 0. So I'm going to select frame 0 right this, so it's at the beginning. And we should see that if we add a property, if we add a property player to our player objects like this, that if he steps on the elevator, it's going to move up, and then he can keep going like this. Alright, so this is a simple tutorial on how to make an elevator with Python in the BGE, or with no Python actually in the BGE. And thanks for watching, everyone.